The last day of normal. Nora Bennett stood frozen in the hallway outside her supervisor's office, a cardboard box pressed against her chest. Inside were 3 years of her life, a coffee mug that read, "Numbers don't lie, people do," a small succulent plant she had kept alive through countless late nights, and a framed photograph of her mother from healthier days. Her hands trembled, but not from the weight of the box. The humiliation burned hotter than any physical cold could touch. 40 minutes earlier, her supervisor Jennifer Hayes had called her into the glass-walled office with an expression that Nora would never forget. Clinical. Detached. Almost bored. "Nora, we have to let you go. There have been discrepancies in the Patterson account. You were the last person to access those files." "That's impossible. I triple-checked everything before I submitted the quarterly report. There must be some mistake." Jennifer had slid a folder across her immaculate desk. "The evidence is here. Security will escort you out. We'll mail your final paycheck." Nora had wanted to scream, to demand they review the security footage, to fight. But the sight of the security guard already waiting outside the office door told her everything she needed to know. This decision had been made before she ever walked into that room. Someone wanted her gone. Now, standing by the elevator bay, she watched her former colleagues avoid eye contact. Some whispered behind their computer monitors. Others suddenly became very interested in their phones. Sarah from marketing, who Nora had helped just last week with her budget presentation, actually turned and walked the other direction. The rain started the moment she stepped outside the building. Of course it did. The universe had a sense of timing that would be funny if it wasn't so cruel. Nora had no umbrella, no coat heavy enough for this downpour, and no idea what she was going to tell her mother. The offer in the storm. Nora walked without direction, letting the rain soak through her blazer, her blouse, her skin. The cardboard box grew heavy and soggy in her arms. She should find shelter. She should call someone. She should do a lot of things. Instead, she just stood there on the sidewalk in front of her former office building, watching the water pool around her shoes. Her phone buzzed. A text from the hospital: "Your mother's medication refill is ready. Please pay the outstanding balance of $2,300 before pickup." $2,300. The number might as well have been 2 million. Nora's savings account had exactly $473. Her mother's illness had consumed everything else. The experimental treatment the doctors wanted to try cost $15,000. Insurance wouldn't cover it. They called it "not medically necessary," which was their polite way of saying they wouldn't pay to extend the life of a woman they considered already lost. The sound of a car engine pulled Nora from her thoughts. A black Mercedes pulled up to the curb, water spraying from its tires. The windows were tinted dark enough that she couldn't see inside. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the back door opened. A man stepped out, and Nora's breath caught. She recognized him immediately. Everyone in the building would. James Whitmore, the CEO, the man whose name was on the letterhead, whose photograph hung in the lobby next to words like "visionary" and "leader." He was younger than she expected, maybe mid-30s, with dark hair that was already dampening in the rain and eyes that seemed to look straight through her. He held an umbrella, expensive and black, and he stepped toward her without hesitation. "Nora Bennett," he said. Not a question. A statement. "How do you know my name?" "I know a lot of things." He held the umbrella over her head, shielding her from the rain that had already soaked her through. "I know you were just fired. I know it was wrong. And I know you need help." Nora took a step back, her grip tightening on the dissolving cardboard box. "I don't understand. Why would you care? You don't even know me." Something flickered across his face. Pain, maybe. Or recognition. "Get in the car, Nora. Please. Let me explain somewhere dry." Every instinct told her to refuse. Strange men in expensive cars don't offer help without wanting something in return. But the weight of her mother's medical bills, the ache of her empty bank account, and the desperate tiredness that had been building for months made her judgment fuzzy. "Just to talk," she said. "Just to hear what you have to say." James nodded and gestured to the open car door. Nora climbed inside, the leather seats immediately soaking up the rainwater that dripped from her clothes. James slid in beside her, and the driver pulled away from the curb without being told where to go. The impossible contract. The car was silent except for the sound of rain on the roof and the quiet hum of the engine. Nora sat rigid, the cardboard box on her lap slowly falling apart, her small belongings threatening to spill onto the expensive floor mats. James sat a respectful distance away, but she could feel his presence like heat. "I need a personal assistant," he said finally. "Someone smart, trustworthy, and discreet. I've been watching your work for 6 months. You're perfect for the position. You've been watching me." The words came out sharper than she intended. "Observing. Your attention to detail is remarkable. The way you caught the Williams account discrepancy last quarter saved the company $200,000. Your problem-solving skills are exactly what I need." Nora turned to look at him. "Then why did Jennifer just fire me?" "Because I asked her to." The confession hung in the air between them. Nora felt her face flush hot. "You what?" "I needed you to need this job. I needed you to have no other options. What I'm about to offer you, you would have refused under normal circumstances." James reached into his jacket and pulled out a cream-colored envelope. "This is a contract for 3 months of work. The salary is $75,000. Nora's mind went blank. $75,000. That was more than she made in a year. That was her mother's treatment, her rent, her debt, everything she needed wrapped up in one impossible number. "What exactly would I have to do?" Her voice sounded far away in her own ears. "Be my assistant. Manage my schedule, attend events with me, handle correspondence. You would live at my estate during the 3 months. Room and board included." "Live with you?" Nora clutched the box tighter. "That's not normal. Personal assistants don't live with their bosses. I work unusual hours. I need someone available at all times. The position requires complete commitment." He paused, and something in his expression shifted. "Your mother is sick. Cancer. Stage 3. The treatment she needs costs $15,000, and insurance won't cover it." Nora felt the blood drain from her face. "How do you know that?" "I told you. I know a lot of things." He held out the envelope. "Take the job, Nora. Save your mother. All I ask is 3 months of your time." Her hands shook as she took the envelope. Inside was a contract, official and detailed, outlining exactly what he had said. The salary line made her dizzy. At the bottom was a clause that made her pause: "Employee may terminate the contract at any time, but full payment will only be rendered upon completion of the 3-month term." "This is crazy," Nora whispered. "I know. Why me? Really? Why go through all this trouble?" James looked out the window at the rain-soaked streets. "Because you remind me of someone I lost. And I'm selfish enough to want that reminder close, even if it's wrong." The honesty in his voice surprised her. Nora looked down at the contract, at the number that could save her mother's life, at the signature line that represented a choice she didn't really have. "If I sign this, when do I start?" "Today. Right now. We'll stop by your apartment so you can pack. I've already arranged for the best oncologist in the city to see your mother tomorrow. Everything is ready, Nora. All you have to do is say yes." The Mansion of Shadows. Nora's apartment building looked even more run-down viewed from inside a Mercedes. Peeling paint, cracked sidewalk, a front door that never quite closed all the way. She had lived there for 5 years and never really seen it until this moment, through the eyes of someone like James Whitmore. Her mother was asleep when they arrived, the medication keeping her in a fog that Nora hated but was also grateful for. She wouldn't have to explain yet. Wouldn't have to see the worry in her mother's eyes or hear the questions Nora couldn't answer. She packed quickly, throwing clothes into a duffel bag without much thought. Toiletries, a few books, the photograph from her desk. She left a note for her mother, got a new job. Better pay. Better hours. Doctor appointment tomorrow at 10. I'll call you tonight. I love you. The drive to James's estate took 40 minutes, leaving the city behind for winding roads and gated communities that Nora had only seen in magazines. When they finally pulled through iron gates and up a long driveway, her breath caught. The mansion was enormous. White stone, tall windows that glowed with warm light, gardens that probably required a full-time staff. It looked like something from a movie, not like a place where real people lived. "Welcome home," James said quietly. A woman met them at the door. She was in her 50s, with steel-gray hair pulled back in a neat bun and an expression that gave nothing away. "This is Helen Wright, my housekeeper," James said. "She'll show you to your room and help you get settled. Dinner is at 7 if you're hungry." Helen nodded at Nora with what might have been sympathy or might have been judgment. "This way, Miss Bennet." The inside of the mansion was just as impressive as the outside. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, artwork that probably cost more than Nora's entire apartment building. Helen led her up a grand staircase and down a hallway that seemed to go on forever. "Here's your room," Helen said, opening a door. "Bathroom is through there. If you need anything, there's an intercom panel by the bed. Press the red button for the kitchen, blue for me, green for Mr. Whitmore." The room was bigger than Nora's entire apartment. A four-poster bed dominated the space, dressed in white linens that looked softer than clouds. French doors led to a balcony overlooking the gardens. There was a sitting area with a velvet sofa, a desk, a walk-in closet that was already partially filled with clothes in her size. "The clothes?" Nora asked. "Mr. Whitmore had them delivered this morning. Professional attire for work, casual for evenings." He was very specific about the sizes. Because he had been watching her. Studying her. Planning this. The thought should have been creepy, should have sent her running. Instead, Nora felt a strange pull of curiosity. Who was James Whitmore really? And why did he need her specifically? "Get some rest," Helen said from the doorway. "Tomorrow morning, Mr. Whitmore will brief you on your duties. 7 o'clock sharp in his office." After Helen left, Nora sank onto the bed. It was as soft as it looked. She pulled out her phone and called her mother. "Baby?" Her mother's voice was groggy but happy. "I got your note." "A new job?" "Yes, Mama. A really good one. And you have a doctor's appointment tomorrow. A specialist. He's supposed to be the best." "Honey, we can't afford a specialist. It's covered. The job comes with benefits. Good benefits." The lie came easily, smoothly. Nora hated it but told it anyway. "Just go to the appointment, okay? Let him examine you. Let's see what he says." They talked for a few more minutes before her mother's medication pulled her back toward sleep. After hanging up, Nora walked to the French doors and stepped onto the balcony. The rain had stopped, leaving everything clean and fresh. The gardens below were lit with subtle lighting that made them look magical. "What have I gotten myself into?" she whispered to the night. Behind her, in the hallway, she heard footsteps pause outside her door. Then continue on. James, checking to make sure she was settled. Or checking to make sure she was real. Nora didn't sleep that night. She lay in the enormous bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about contracts and sick mothers and men who orchestrated strangers' lives like chess pieces. Thinking about the way James had looked at her in the car, like he was seeing someone else. Someone he had lost. At 6:30, she gave up on sleep and took a long shower in the marble bathroom. She dressed in one of the outfits from the closet, a tailored black dress that fit perfectly, and tried not to think about how he knew her exact measurements. At 7 o'clock precisely, she knocked on the office door Helen had pointed out the night before. "Come in," James's voice called. The office was masculine and severe. Dark wood, leather furniture, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves filled with legal texts and business journals. James sat behind a massive desk, already dressed in a suit that probably cost more than Nora's car. "Good morning," he said. "Did you sleep well?" "No." A slight smile touched his lips. "Honest. I appreciate that. Sit down, Nora. Let's talk about what comes next." And as Nora sat in the leather chair across from him, as morning light streamed through the windows and caught the gold in his dark eyes, she realized that this was only the beginning. 3 months suddenly seemed like both forever and not nearly enough time to uncover all the secrets hiding in this beautiful, lonely house, the first week of everything. 7 days passed in a blur of schedules, phone calls, and learning the intricate dance of being James Whitmore's shadow. Nora discovered that working for him meant existing in two worlds: the public James, who commanded boardrooms with quiet authority and made million-dollar decisions before breakfast, and the private James, who barely slept, who stood at windows long after midnight, who sometimes looked at her with such raw longing that she had to turn away. Her duties were straightforward on paper. Manage his calendar, screen his calls, prepare briefings for meetings, accompany him to business dinners. In reality, it meant being present for everything. She sat in on conference calls at 6 in the morning, rode beside him in the car to tour construction sites, stood quietly in the corner during tense negotiations with investors who thought they could intimidate the young CEO. They couldn't. James was brilliant in a way that seemed almost effortless. He remembered every detail, anticipated every argument, moved through business like a grandmaster playing chess against amateurs. Watching him work was like watching art. But it was the in-between moments that confused her. The way his hand would linger on the small of her back when guiding her through doorways. The way he would pause mid-sentence when she laughed at something, his expression unreadable. The way he insisted she call him James, not Mr. Whitmore, when they were alone. "You're not just an employee," he had said on the third day. "This arrangement is more complicated than that." "Then what am I?" Nora had asked. He hadn't answered. The visitor's warning. On Thursday afternoon, Nora was organizing files in James's home office when Helen appeared in the doorway, her usually composed face tight with concern. "Miss Bennet, there's a woman at the gate. She's demanding to see Mr. Whitmore. I told her he's in meetings, but she won't leave." Did she give a name? Rebecca Stone. The name meant nothing to Nora, but something in Helen's tone suggested it should. "Should I call James?" "No. He's with the board. This call determines the Singapore expansion. He can't be interrupted." Helen wrung her hands, a gesture Nora had never seen from the unflappable housekeeper. "But Miss Stone, she's unpredictable. I'm worried she'll make a scene." Nora stood. "I'll handle it." The walk to the front gate took 3 minutes down the long driveway. Through the ornate iron bars, Nora could see a woman pacing. She was beautiful in a sharp, dangerous way. Red hair that fell in perfect waves, designer clothes that screamed money, and an expression that promised violence. "Can I help you?" Nora called through the gate. The woman spun around, her green eyes narrowing. "Who are you?" "I work for Mr. Whitmore. He's unavailable right now. If you'd like to leave a message, I can make sure he gets it." Rebecca laughed, but there was no humor in it. She walked closer to the gate, and Nora could smell expensive perfume mixed with alcohol. "You work for him? Is that what he's calling it now?" "I'm his personal assistant." "Assistant." Rebecca drew the word out mockingly. "Let me guess. You live here too? In that big house? In one of those pretty bedrooms upstairs?" Nora kept her expression neutral. Mr. Whitmore's living arrangements with his staff are none of your concern. None of my concern. Rebecca's voice rose. I killed his family. I think that gives me some concern about who he's letting into his life. The words hit Nora like a physical blow. What did you say? Oh, he didn't tell you. Rebecca smiled, and it was the cruelest thing Nora had ever seen. 5 years ago, I was driving drunk. I ran a red light. I hit a car. James's wife Grace and their daughter Lily died because of me. She paused, watching Nora's face. I went to prison. Got out early for good behavior. And you know what the funny thing is? I did it because James rejected me. I loved him first, before Grace. But he chose her. So I destroyed them both. Nora felt sick. You need to leave. Look at yourself, Rebecca continued, pressing closer to the gate. Really look. You have dark hair, dark eyes, the same build as Grace. Did you think it was a coincidence that James found you? That he offered you this job? She laughed again. You're not his assistant, sweetheart. You're his replacement doll. A pretty ghost he can control. You're wrong. Am I? Ask him. Ask him why he really hired you. Ask him if he even knows your real name or if he just calls you by hers when you're not listening. Behind Nora, she heard footsteps. James's voice cut through the air like a blade. Rebecca, leave. Now. He stood beside Nora, his face pale with fury. Rebecca's expression shifted from triumphant to something almost pleading. James, please. I just want to talk. I've changed. I'm sober now. I go to meetings. I'm trying to make amends. You can't make amends for murder. It was an accident. You got behind the wheel drunk. You made a choice. James's voice was quiet, controlled, but Nora could feel him shaking. You took everything from me. My wife, my daughter, my future. And now you want forgiveness? I want a chance, Rebecca whispered. You had a chance. You wasted it. If you come back here again, I'll file a restraining order. If you contact me again, I'll have you violated back to prison. Stay away from my life, Rebecca. Stay away from Nora. He took Nora's hand and pulled her back toward the house. Behind them, Rebecca screamed something, but the words were lost in the wind. They walked in silence until they reached the front door. Only then did James release her hand. Is it true? Nora asked quietly. Do I look like your wife? James closed his eyes. Yes. The forbidden room. That night, Nora couldn't sleep. The revelation about Grace and Lily, about Rebecca's crime, about her own face being a mirror to a dead woman, it all churned in her mind. At 2 a.m, she gave up and wandered the hallways, trying to walk off the anxious energy. The mansion at night was different. Shadows pooled in corners. The grandfather clock in the hall ticked too loudly. Nora found herself on the 3rd floor, a wing of the house she hadn't explored yet. Most of the doors were open, revealing empty guest rooms, a library, a music room with a grand piano covered in dust. But one door at the end of the hall was different. White, where the others were dark wood. Closed, where the others stood open. And there was something about it that drew her forward even as instinct told her to turn back. The doorknob turned easily under her hand. The door opened without a sound. The room beyond took her breath away. It was a shrine. That was the only word for it. The walls were covered with photographs, dozens of them, all of the same 2 people. A beautiful woman with dark hair and warm eyes. A little girl with curls and a gap-toothed smile. Grace and Lily. But it was more than photographs. The room was furnished like a sitting room, with comfortable chairs and soft lighting. A child's drawings were framed on one wall, bright crayon pictures of families and houses and sunshine. A bookshelf held children's books, their spines worn from reading. In the corner sat a rocking chair, and draped over it was a small pink sweater. Nora walked further inside, drawn by the love and grief that saturated every surface. On a side table sat a jewelry box. Her hand moved without permission, opening it. Inside was a wedding ring and a smaller ring, child-sized, with a tiny purple stone. "I come here every night." Nora spun around. James stood in the doorway, barefoot, wearing only pajama pants and a t-shirt. He looked younger like this, more vulnerable. His hair was messy, his eyes red-rimmed. "I'm sorry," Nora stammered. "I shouldn't have come in here." "No, you shouldn't have." He walked into the room and picked up one of the photographs, a wedding picture. "But I'm glad you did. Now you know the truth." "James, I'm so sorry about what happened to them." "Are you sorry enough to leave?" He set the photo down and turned to face her. "Because you should. You should run from this house and never come back." "I'm not a good man, Nora. I'm a broken thing pretending to be whole." "You're grieving." "I'm obsessed." He moved closer, and Nora could see the desperation in his eyes. "When I saw you that first time, 6 months ago in that coffee shop, I thought I was hallucinating. You looked so much like Grace that I couldn't breathe. I followed you. I learned everything about you. Your job, your mother, your debts. And I planned this. All of it." "The firing," Nora whispered. "I paid Jennifer Hayes $20,000 to frame you for those missing files. I orchestrated your desperation so you'd have no choice but to accept my offer." He laughed bitterly. "Do you understand? I manipulated your entire life because I wanted to see my dead wife's face again." Nora should have been angry. Should have slapped him, should have walked out. But looking at his face, at the self-loathing written in every line, she felt something else. Understanding. Pity. And underneath it all, something more dangerous. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I'm falling in love with you." The words came out raw, painful. "Not with Grace's ghost. With you, Nora. Your laugh, your kindness, the way you hum when you're concentrating. The way you're not afraid to tell me when I'm being an idiot. I'm falling in love with you, and it's killing me because you deserve so much better than this." Nora's heart hammered in her chest. "James. I'll write you a check for the full amount of the contract. Your mother's treatment is already paid for. You can leave tonight." "You should leave tonight." "What if I don't want to?" He stared at her. "You can't mean that. Everything you just told me, I should hate you for it. I should hate you for manipulating me, for using my mother's illness against me." Nora took a shaky breath. "But I've seen you this week. The real you. The man who stays up until 3 in the morning making sure every employee gets a Christmas bonus. The man who personally called my mother's oncologist to make sure she's getting the best care. The man who looks at me like I'm the only real thing in his world. That doesn't excuse what I did. No, it doesn't. But it makes you human." She reached out and touched his face, felt him flinch and then lean into her palm. "You made terrible choices because you were drowning in grief. That doesn't make you a monster. It makes you someone who needs help. I don't deserve your forgiveness. Maybe not. But I'm giving it anyway." Nora smiled sadly. "I'm not Grace, James. I'll never be Grace. Can you live with that?" James pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her like she was the only thing keeping him anchored to the earth. "I don't want Grace. I want you. God help me, I just want you." They stood like that for a long time, two damaged people finding comfort in each other's broken pieces. Outside the forbidden room, the night continued. But inside, something shifted. Something healed, just a little. The business dinner. 3 days after the conversation in Grace's room, James had a business dinner. "I need you there," he told Nora over breakfast. "Daniel Park and his wife are coming. They're investors in the Singapore project. Daniel thinks I'm too young, too inexperienced. He's been looking for reasons to pull his funding. So you need to present a stable, successful image," Nora understood. "And bringing a date makes you look settled. Something like that." James looked uncomfortable. "I know it's manipulative, using you like this. James, I'm your assistant. This is literally my job." She smiled. "Besides, I've never been to a 5-star restaurant. Should be interesting." That evening, Helen helped Nora get ready. The dress James had selected was midnight blue silk, elegant and expensive. Helen styled her hair in loose waves, applied makeup that made Nora barely recognize herself. When she came downstairs, James was waiting in the foyer. He wore a black suit that fit him perfectly, and when he saw her, he froze mid-step. "Nora." Her name came out like a prayer. "You look beautiful. The dress does most of the work." "No." He took her hand and kissed her knuckles, a gesture so old-fashioned and sweet that Nora felt her cheeks warm. "You do all the work. The dress is just lucky to be there." The restaurant was everything Nora expected: crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, waiters who moved like dancers. Daniel Park and his wife Jennifer were already seated when they arrived. Daniel was in his 50s, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Jennifer was younger, pretty in a calculated way. "James." Daniel stood to shake hands. "And who is this lovely creature?" "This is Nora Bennett, my girlfriend." The lie came smoothly from James's lips, and his hand on Nora's back felt possessive, protective. They sat, ordered wine, made small talk about the weather and the menu. But Nora could feel the undercurrent of evaluation. Daniel was watching them, looking for cracks, for signs of weakness. "So Nora, how did you and James meet?" Jennifer asked sweetly, but her eyes were calculating. Nora had prepared for this. "At a coffee shop, actually. I spilled my latte all over his laptop. I thought he was going to murder me, but instead he asked for my number." She looked at James and saw him fighting a smile. "He's been stuck with me ever since." "How charming," Daniel said dryly. "And what do you do, Nora?" "I work in finance. Corporate accounting, mostly." Not a lie, technically. She had worked in finance before James destroyed her career. The dinner continued with talk of investments and market trends. Nora listened more than she spoke, but when she did contribute, she made sure it counted. She had studied the Singapore project, knew the numbers, understood the risks. Daniel's eyebrows rose as she casually mentioned profit margins and ROI calculations. "You're well informed for a girlfriend," Daniel observed. "I'm well informed because I'm smart," Nora replied smoothly. "The girlfriend part is just a bonus." James's hand found hers under the table and squeezed gently. After dinner, as they waited for the valet to bring the car, Daniel pulled James aside. Nora couldn't hear what they said, but she saw Daniel clap James on the shoulder, saw the approval in his expression. In the car, James let out a long breath. "You were perfect." Daniel committed to another $2 million in funding. He said, and I quote, "Any man smart enough to land a woman like that is smart enough to handle my money. Glad I could help." Nora kicked off her heels, sighing in relief. "These shoes are torture devices." James laughed, a real laugh that lit up his whole face. "Come here." She slid across the seat until she was pressed against his side. He wrapped an arm around her shoulders, and they rode through the city like that, watching lights blur past the windows. "Nora," James said softly. "This thing between us, it started as a lie. My lie. But it doesn't feel like a lie anymore." "No," she agreed. "It doesn't. I don't know how to do this. How to be with someone again. How to let myself be happy without feeling guilty. Nora tilted her head up to look at him. Then we'll figure it out together. No more lies, no more manipulation. Just honesty, even when it hurts. Even when it hurts, he repeated. Then he kissed her, soft and tentative, like she was something precious he was afraid to break. The kiss deepened, became more urgent. Nora's hands tangled in his hair, and his hand gripped her waist, pulling her closer. The driver kept his eyes on the road, professional and discreet. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, James rested his forehead against hers. Stay with me tonight. Not in your room. In mine. It wasn't a demand. It was a question, a plea. Nora knew that if she said no, he would accept it without argument. But she didn't want to say no. She wanted to say yes to this broken, beautiful man who had turned her life upside down. Yes, she whispered. The breaking point. For 2 weeks, Nora and James existed in a bubble of cautious happiness. She moved her things into his room, and they fell into a routine that felt almost domestic. Morning coffee in bed while reviewing his schedule. Stolen kisses between conference calls. Evenings walking through the gardens, talking about everything and nothing. Nora's mother's treatment was going well. The new medication was working, and the oncologist was optimistic about her prognosis. Nora visited her twice a week, and each time her mother looked stronger, healthier. It felt like everything was finally falling into place. Then Rebecca came back. It was a Thursday afternoon. Nora was in the library, reading, when she heard shouting from the foyer. She rushed downstairs to find Rebecca standing inside the mansion, Helen trying unsuccessfully to guide her out. Where is he? Rebecca demanded. Her eyes were wild, her makeup smeared. Where's James? I need to talk to him. Miss Stone, you need to leave, Helen said firmly. I'm calling security. Call them. I don't care. James. Rebecca screamed up the stairs. James, you coward. Face me. Nora heard James's office door open. He appeared at the top of the stairs, his expression thunderous. How did you get in here? The gate was open. Delivery truck. I just walked right in. Rebecca smiled, ugly and triumphant. We need to talk, James. About us. About giving me another chance. There is no us. There will never be in US. You murdered my family. It was an accident. How many times do I have to say it? I'm sorry. I've been sober for 3 years. I've done everything the court asked. When is it enough? When do I get forgiveness? Never. James descended the stairs, each step deliberate. You get never. Now get out of my house before I have you arrested for trespassing. Rebecca's eyes slid to Nora, standing frozen by the library door. This is about her, isn't it? Your little replacement project. Does she know the whole truth, James? Have you told her everything? Nora knows what she needs to know. Does she know you still go to Grace's grave every Sunday? That you talk to her like she's still alive? Rebecca's voice turned venomous. Does she know that you'll never really love her because she's just a consolation prize? Stop, James said quietly. Or what? You'll hate me more. Impossible. You already hate me as much as a person can hate someone. Rebecca walked toward Nora, and Nora saw the desperation in her eyes, the kind that made people dangerous. Run, sweetheart. Run before he destroys you the way he destroys everything he touches. He'll never love you. You're just a ghost he's trying to bring back to life. That's enough. James grabbed Rebecca's arm, pulling her away from Nora. Security. 2 guards burst through the door, summoned by Helen. They took Rebecca by the arms, and she struggled, screaming obscenities as they dragged her toward the exit. At the door, she turned back one last time. You can't hide from the truth forever, James. She deserves to know what you really are. Then she was gone, the door slamming shut behind her, leaving a terrible silence in her wake. Nora stood very still, her mind racing. What did she mean? What truth? James ran a hand through his hair, looking suddenly exhausted. She's just trying to cause trouble. Making things up to hurt us. Is she? Nora walked closer. Because it sounded like there's something you haven't told me. Something important. Nora, please. Do you still go to Grace's grave every Sunday? The silence was answer enough. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't want you to think that meant I wasn't over her. I am over her. I'm with you. But you still talk to her. It wasn't a question. Nora could see the truth in his face. You're with me, but you're still having conversations with your dead wife. It's complicated. No, James. It's actually pretty simple. Nora felt tears burning behind her eyes. You're not over her. You may never be over her. And I've been fooling myself thinking that I could be enough. You are enough. Am I? Or am I just convenient? The right face, the right body, close enough to her that you can pretend in the dark. That's not fair. None of this is fair. Nora's voice broke. I fell in love with you, James. Really, truly fell in love with you. Not because you look like someone or remind me of something I lost. I love you for you. Can you say the same? James stared at her, and the silence stretched between them like a chasm. I love you, he said finally. I do, I swear. But you love her more. It's not the same kind of love. That's not an answer. Nora wiped her eyes, trying to hold herself together. I can't compete with a ghost, James. I won't. I deserve someone who loves me first, not second. Not as a replacement or a reminder. Just me. Nora, please don't do this. I'm not doing anything. You did this. You brought me here under false pretenses. You made me fall in love with you while you were still in love with someone else. She took a shaky breath. I need to leave. I need time to think. Don't go. James grabbed her hands. Please, let's talk about this. Let's figure it out. There's nothing to figure out. Rebecca was right. I can't be what you need me to be because what you need is impossible. You need Grace, and she's gone. Nora pulled free and ran up the stairs to her old room. She threw her belongings into her duffel bag with shaking hands, tears streaming down her face. Behind her, she heard James in the hallway, heard him say her name, but she couldn't stop. If she stopped, she would stay. And staying would destroy her. She pushed past him, past Helen who was crying in the foyer, and out into the afternoon sun. She called a taxi from the end of the driveway, refusing to look back at the mansion, at the life she was leaving behind. The taxi arrived, and she climbed in. Only then did she let herself turn around. James stood at the gate, watching her go, his face a mask of anguish. I'm sorry, she whispered, though he couldn't hear her. I'm so sorry. The empty days. Nora's apartment had never felt smaller. After 2 weeks in James's mansion, the peeling wallpaper and cramped rooms seemed like they belonged to someone else's life. Her mother was home from the hospital, looking better than she had in months, and that should have been enough. That should have filled the hollow space inside Nora's chest. It wasn't. She threw herself into job searching, into taking care of her mother, into anything that would keep her mind busy. But at night, lying in her childhood bed, she thought about James. The way he smiled when he thought no one was watching. The sound of his laugh. The feel of his arms around her. Her mother noticed, of course. Patricia Bennett had always been able to read her daughter like a book. You look like someone died, her mother said one evening over dinner. Her appetite had returned with the new treatment, and she was eating actual food instead of just pushing it around her plate. "I'm fine, Mom." "You're miserable." Patricia set down her fork. "This is about that man, isn't it? The one who got me this treatment." Nora had told her mother an edited version of the truth. That she'd taken a temporary job with a wealthy CEO, that he'd helped with the medical bills as part of her compensation. She hadn't mentioned falling in love, hadn't mentioned the complication of being a dead woman's double. "It doesn't matter. It's over." "Why?" "Because it's complicated. He's not over his past, and I can't be with someone who's still in love with someone else." Patricia was quiet for a moment, studying her daughter's face. "Let me tell you something about grief, baby. When your father died, I thought I'd never be happy again. The pain was so big, I couldn't see around it. And people kept telling me that time would heal it, that eventually I'd move on." "Did you?" "No. I didn't move on. I moved forward." Her mother reached across the table and took Nora's hand. "The grief never went away. I still love your father. I still miss him every single day. But I learned to carry it differently. It became part of me instead of all of me." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that asking someone to stop loving a person they lost is asking them to cut off a part of themselves. It's not possible. The question is whether they can make room for new love alongside the old." Patricia squeezed Nora's hand. "Did this man make room for you?" Nora thought about James's face when he looked at her. The way he said her name, Nora, not Grace. The way he held her like she was precious. "I think he was trying to." "Then maybe you gave up too easily." The word stayed with Nora long after dinner was cleared, long after her mother went to bed. Had she given up too easily? Had she let Rebecca's poison words drive her away from something real? James's dissent. James hadn't left his office in 3 days. Helen brought meals that went uneaten. Phone calls piled up, unanswered. The Singapore project was falling apart because he couldn't focus long enough to make decisions. Daniel Park had called twice, concerned. The board was starting to ask questions. James didn't care about any of it. He sat at his desk, Nora's employment contract spread out in front of him. 3 months, they'd agreed. She'd only stayed 3 weeks. He owed her the full salary anyway. He'd already transferred the money to her account, along with a bonus that would ensure her mother's treatment continued for years. It wasn't enough. Nothing would be enough. Daniel Park showed up unannounced on the 4th day, pushing past Helen and barging into the office. "What the hell is going on with you?" "I'm busy," James said without looking up. "You're falling apart. The Singapore deal is dying because you won't return calls. Your staff is worried." "I'm worried." Daniel sat down across from him. "Talk to me, James. What happened?" "She left." "Who left?" "Nora." Daniel's eyes widened. "Your girlfriend?" James laughed bitterly. "She was never really my girlfriend. It was all a lie. Everything was a lie. I don't believe that. I saw the way you looked at her. The way she looked at you. That wasn't fake. It was fake for her. She was just doing her job. Does she know that?" Daniel leaned forward. "Have you told her how you really feel?" James finally looked up. "I told her I loved her. And she left anyway because I'm an idiot who can't let go of the past." Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that changed everything. "Grace wouldn't have wanted this, you know. She wouldn't have wanted you to be alone." James felt tears sting his eyes. "How do you know?" "You never met her. Because anyone who loved you would want you to be happy. That's what love is." Daniel stood. "Stop hiding in this office. Go to Nora. Tell her the truth about everything. Fight for her. And if she still walks away, at least you'll know you tried. After Daniel left, James sat in the quiet office for a long time. Then he stood, grabbed his car keys, and did something he hadn't done in 3 years. He drove to the cemetery. Grace's permission. The grave was simple. Grace had hated ostentation. The headstone read, Grace Marie Whitmore, beloved wife and mother, 1985 to 2019. Next to it, smaller, Lily Rose Whitmore, our angel, 2016 to 2019. James knelt in the grass and started talking. I met someone, Grace. You'd like her, I think. She's strong and smart and she doesn't take my nonsense. She makes me laugh. She makes me feel human again. He traced his fingers over the letters of her name. But I messed it up. I brought her into my life for the wrong reasons. I told myself it was because she looked like you, but that was just an excuse. The truth is, I was scared of moving forward. Scared of betraying you by being happy. The wind rustled through the trees. A bird sang somewhere nearby. I need you to tell me it's okay. I need to know that loving someone new doesn't mean I love you less. His voice broke. I'll never forget you, Grace. You and Lily will always be part of me. But I'm still here. I'm still alive. And I think, maybe, I deserve to live again. The bird's song continued. The wind kept blowing. Grace didn't answer because she couldn't. But sitting there in the grass, talking to stone and earth and memory, James felt something shift inside him. Not closure, that was too neat a word. But permission, maybe. Permission to try. He stood, kissed his fingers, and pressed them to the headstone. Thank you. For everything. For the time we had. For Lily. For loving me even when I was difficult. He smiled through tears. I'm going to go now. I'm going to fight for her. Wish me luck. He walked back to his car feeling lighter than he had in years. The grief was still there. It would always be there. But it didn't feel quite so heavy anymore. The grand gesture. Nora was folding laundry when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Hello. Miss Bennett, this is Dr. Harrison Chen, your mother's oncologist. Nora's heart dropped. Is something wrong? Is my mother okay? She's fine. Sorry, I should have led with that. She's perfectly fine. Actually, I'm calling about something else. You've been selected to receive the Patricia Morrison Grant for Cancer Patient Families. It's a new program, fully funded, that covers all treatment costs and provides living expenses for the family. I don't understand. I didn't apply for any grant.